Hello, today me and my colleagues are going to talk about the book Why the French Don't Like Headscarves, Islam, the State and Public Space, written by John R. Bowen. In early 2004, the French government passed a law banning any religious clothing in public schools. The adoption led to a broad discussion of Islamic radicalism and the oppression of women. Nevertheless, both commissions of the French government voted unanimously in favor for the adoption of the law. The law was formulated religiously neutral, but it was clearly aimed to prohibit to wear headscarves in schools for Islamic girls. The French press fiercely criticized the adoption of the law, which put French society and the policy of laïcité or secularism in danger. Also, the French state tried to help Muslims with recognizing Islamic organizations and building mosques. The scandal over the adoption of the law in 2004 was huge. The author emphasized that the interesting side of the debate is that despite the fact that the protection of laïcité was cited as the main reason for the adoption of the law, the media linked the situation to the specific social problems, such as the growth of communism, influence of international Islamism, and the oppression of women in suburbs.
The dominant way of thinking in France is republicanism. According to this way of thinking, living together in a society requires agreement on basic values. For example, adhering to a certain brand of political philosophy, one that emphasizes general interests and shared values over the individual ones. If the society has right mechanisms to integrate people, then the state can be quite generous in welcoming the immigrants and extending borders, but these immigrants are required to take on the values and the behaviors that signify that one has become French. The task of the state, according to author, is to create citizens who are properly prepared to participate in public life, for example, by educating them in schools and by exemplifying what it means to be French citizen. Schools play the role of public socializing agent. Public utility. The state funds private schools and pays their employees if they are considered to serve this public utility. Public service, like teachers and principals, are supposed to speak and act in accord with the state directives. School personnel, in particular, are supposed to act in accord with the certain idea of French citizenship and to form the future French men and women. Blandine Cringel, political philosopher in France, claimed that French people hold strongly to the principle of laïcité. That principle is very important in the book. As Blandine Cringel said, we have to place ourselves in the public space by abstracting from our individual characteristics, from where we came from, our roots. This is the idea of social contract. Laïcité is roughly saying the process of turning peasants into the Frenchmen. The difficulty of this notion is that it does not exist particularly. There has never been the agreement on the role of religion in the public life, and there has never been the historical actor called laïcité. Only a series of laws, of multiple efforts to assert claims of over the public space, the debates, organized religion, Le Culte appeared in the book and was distincted from the laïcité. The Le Culte is supposed to remain just ordered, bounded, orderly, contained in its buildings and defended by the state and defined by the worship practices in those buildings. The state must be active in defining and regulating the activities of religious leaders, and also is in protecting and guaranteeing the ability of practitioners to worship. Islam's ritual practices, like wearing scarves or sacrificing or prostrations in exotic buildings, are felt like threatening to the French public order. The demands of Muslims to leave their religion in public have made clear the contradictions between French notions of private nature of the religion and still public role of French Catholic
An
heritage.
important role in the history of regulation of Islam in France is taken by the policy of laïcité. The main principle of policy that the state should control religion but do not allow it to go on the political stage, only regulation and protection. The author focuses on three cases of the French state's application of the laïcité policy towards Islam: the financing of mosques, the organization of Muslim sections in cemeteries, and the creation of the French Council for the Muslim religion. The idea of regulating Islam first appeared in 1895 but was not developed until after the Second World War. The establishment of the Muslim Institute in Paris marked the emergence of a new legal model for regulating Islam. The history of regulation of Islam shows two common problems of legitimacy in French state. First of all, appointing representatives out of their preferences that weakens their legitimacy. Second of all, the selected organizations and symbols of Islam suffered from poor organization, which led to the confusion and disrespect for the Islamic people in France.
Well, the problem with immigrants appeared when France decided to recover from the Second World War. It was very destructive, and therefore a lot of working force was required. So they decided to take them from their colonies in Africa. Many Arabic people came to France for some particular period to work and to recover the economy. There was a big problem with that because they lived in far away from ordinary citizens of France, and by the project of the French government, they had to move back to their countries. However, it doesn't happen. Why? Because France started to lose its colonies, and therefore people didn't want to get back to their native place. And actually, the second problem was that the children that was born in France, they already became the ordinary citizens of this country. However, the society didn't get them. How is it happened? For example, we can take a story of a French and Arabic girl. She can't be assimilated in this country because not students, not teachers, they didn't want to take care and even to talk in a short distance with such people. Therefore, they have to unite it with the ordinary people with Islamic religion. Actually, the Tahar Ben Jelon describes them as a generation dominated to a cultural orhalot and ontology fragility. That's how the generation that is called bears, not generation, but the, I guess, nation of them appeared.
Before discussing the perception of French regarding Islamism, I would like to identify Islamism from French perspective. Islamism is an assumption that it illegitimately takes religion out of private, interior world of faith and into the public political sphere, and by so doing places religion over the general interest of the society. Islamism threatens the principle of laicite and republic because it implies the global political character. The main objective of French must be, therefore, to domesticate Islam. Following the principle of laicite, any religion must remain strictly in private sphere as one of many associations the citizens voluntarily chose to accept and at any point of time can change their choice. The problem with Islamism is that it implies the obedience of absolute truth given citizens by birth rather than citizens' free choice. I found interesting the interpretation of Marcel Gauet of Islam and his assumption that headscarves in public can be perceived as public visual assault, a gesture of superiority of women's values to those of others. Therefore, Islam is considered to be anti-democratic and anti-republican, and therefore, when Islamists claim that they can create a political public Islam in Europe and at the same time be good citizens of Europe, most French regard this as double talk. The supporters of the law base the decision not so much on the principle of laicite, but on the assumption that the law would protect women from social pressure by men and boys, violence in poor suburbs, and assaults on their dignity and equal status as citizens. Hence, there is an assumption that girls wear headscarves to hide their body and hide their femininity, and thus accepting headscarves in public places would promote shame on their bodies and undermine their status as free citizens. Moreover, since the argument concerns the women's right, the scope of the headscarf ban extends from schools to all public places where French citizens develop a life together. And it also required to address the statements of girls and women who chose to wear headscarves, but because giving voice to young women in headscarves might lead viewers to agree with their own account, which will emphasize personal choice and commitment, French television does not provide an equal playing field for both sides. Instead, television producers would select the guests who will advocate for the passing the law and attack, let's say, an only Muslim who will represent the other side of the debate.
This Arabic discrimination caused a lot of problems and misunderstandings in French society, and therefore it is very essential to solve them. And now government trying to take some laws to somehow take under control the problem of religious diversity.